The throne room of the Varelian Empire was silent, not the proud silence it once held, filled with respect and fear, but a dead silence. Broken pillars lay across the floor. The glowing walls were cracked and dark. The great symbols of the hive were torn apart. Burned by weapons from inside the palace itself dotted the center of the ruin. Queen Cirith lay bleeding. She was the ruler of 1,000 systems, feared across the stars. Her voice once decided the fate of worlds. Now that voice was reduced to shallow breaths filled with pain. Silver-blue blood slowly spread beneath her body, warm and shining faintly against the cold metal floor. The wound in her side was deep. Too deep. Cirith knew this blade. She could feel its mark even without seeing it. A royal weapon. A weapon only her own kind could carry. Betrayal. Her long fingers trembled as she tried to move. Pain rushed through her like fire, forcing a sharp hiss from her throat. She failed to rise. The queen who never knelt now could not even stand. Her thoughts drifted through memories she never allowed herself to feel before. Her council standing behind her throne, their bowed heads. Their false loyalty. She remembered her sisters. Eyes cold, calculating, smiling. As the blade struck, "You rule with weakness." Her sister had said, "Peace will destroy us." The council had agreed. Cirith had believed she was saving her people by ending the war with humanity. She believed strength could come from restraint. She had been wrong, or perhaps they were afraid she was right. A soft alarm echoed somewhere far away. Emergency lights flickered weakly. The palace was not abandoned. Someone would come soon. Friends or executioners. Cirith closed her eyes for a moment, not in fear, but in exhaustion. She had ruled for centuries. She had crushed rebellions without mercy. She had ordered fleets into battle without regret. And yet, in this final moment, she felt something unfamiliar. Loneliness. Heavy footsteps echoed at the edge of the ruined hall. Cirith's eyes snapped open. She forced her body to tense, gathering what little strength she had left. If death had come, she would face it awake. She turned her head slowly toward the sound, expecting the tall armored shapes of Varelian guards. Instead, she saw something impossible. A human. He stood at the entrance of the throne room, frozen in place. His armor was damaged, covered in burns and deep scratches. One arm hung useless at his side. His helmet was gone, revealing a tired face marked by scars and ash. A Terran soldier. A human was not supposed to be here. Not alone. Not alive. Humans were enemies. Short-lived creatures of flesh and emotion. Loud, stubborn, dangerous in ways her people never fully understood. Her empire had fought them for years. And lost millions doing it. The human took a careful step forward, then stopped. His eyes were locked on her, wide not with triumph, but shock. Cirith tried to rise again. Her body betrayed her. Pain tore through her chest, and she collapsed back to the floor with a sharp breath. The human reacted instantly, moving toward her. "No," Cirith gasped. Fear rushed through her, not of death, but of humiliation. To be seen like this, weak, broken, touched by an enemy. She raised her hand, claws shaking, and forced her voice to form words. "You mustn't touch me." "Human." The words came out as a whisper. The human stopped. Slowly, carefully, he lowered himself to one knee several steps away. He raised his empty hand, showing he carried no weapon. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. His voice was strange, soft, not filled with hatred, not filled with fear. Cirith stared at him, confused and angry all at once. "Then leave," she said. "My people will return. They will kill you." The human looked around the ruined hall, then back at her. "Seems like they already tried killing everyone," he replied. For a long moment, neither moved. The queen of an empire lay, dying on her own floor, and the enemy of her people chose not to strike, for the first time in her long life. Cirith wondered if she truly understood humanity at all. The human stayed where he was, kneeling in the shadows of the ruined throne room. Cirith watched him with suspicion, her silver blue eyes narrowing. Every instinct in her body screamed to strike, to lash out, to defend herself even in weakness. But he did nothing. Not yet. Not even a step closer. "I am Elias Ward," he said softly, his voice calm but firm. "I was sent with the strike team. They didn't make it." Cirith's chest tightened. Humans were supposed to be cruel, ruthless. They were supposed to kill when they had the chance. And yet, here was one human, speaking of his dead companions. Kneeling before her, not threatening, not boasting. "Then leave," she whispered again. Her throat dry, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "I am no longer queen to my people. You will die if you stay." Elias shook his head slowly, his dark hair falling over his brow. "I've been running my whole life," he said. "Running from missions, running from death, running from the people who think they can control me. And every time I ran, I learned that leaving never fixes anything. Not really. So this time, I'm staying." Cirith blinked, startled. Staying? Why would a human choose to stay in a palace filled with death, in a throne room filled with betrayal and enemies? Her mind searched for some trick, some trap hidden in his words. There was none. Only truth, as strange and raw as the universe itself. "You hate me," she said finally. Her voice was hoarse, trembling with the weight of centuries. "You should hate me. My fleets burned your worlds. My soldiers killed your kind. We are enemies." Elias met her gaze evenly. "I should," he admitted. "But right now, I just see someone who is bleeding and alone." Alone, the word struck her harder than any blade ever could. Cirith had ruled for centuries, but she had never been alone like this before. Her council, her generals, even her sister had surrounded her with deception. But this human, he saw her simply as she was, wounded, betrayed, vulnerable. She felt a shiver run through her body, a strange mixture of fear and curiosity. Could a human truly be different? Could one human feel compassion for an alien who had caused so much pain? The thought was alien in itself. Cirith's mind drifted back to the betrayal that had brought her here. The council had opposed her plans for peace. They had feared that compassion would weaken the empire. Her sister had struck the final blow, believing that Cirith's death would cement her own power. The palace had become a battlefield not against the humans, but within her own people. And now she lay here, bleeding, alone, except for this human who refused to leave. "Why?" she asked at last, her whisper barely audible. "Why are you here? Why don't you strike? Why do you stay?" Elias tilted his head, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of her blood. "Because someone once stayed for me," he said simply. "And I remember what that felt like. I remember that even when you're weak, even when you're surrounded by death, someone can choose you. And that choice, it changes everything." The words struck her harder than any weapon could. Cirith had been surrounded by loyalty and fear her entire life. And yet she had never been chosen. Never really. Not by anyone. Until now, she looked at him, studying his every movement. He was tired, injured, scars marred his skin. His armor was cracked, his weapon useless. And still, he stayed. He did not retreat. He did not hesitate. He chose her, despite everything. A wave of something unfamiliar washed over her, gratitude perhaps. Or maybe it was hope. She had always thought hope was a weakness. But in the presence of this human, it felt like the only thing that could save her. Alarms suddenly blared through the ruined palace. Distant voices shouted in the corridors. The council's guards were returning, intent on finishing what they had started. Cirith's body tensed in pain and fear, but her eyes stayed on Elias. "You should run," she whispered urgently. "It's too late for you. Leave before they find you." Elias shook his head, determination hardening his face. "No," he said. "I've made my choice. I'm not leaving you." Cirith's chest tightened at the sound of those words. She had ruled with fear, strength, and strategy. She had faced armies, rebellion, and treachery. And yet, she had never faced anyone who would risk everything simply to stay. Her empire had taught her that survival depended on power. Her people had taught her that trust was a lie. But this human, this strange, stubborn creature, taught her something entirely new, something dangerous. Compassion. And maybe, just maybe, hope. The distant alarms grew louder. The echo of armored footsteps bounced off the shattered walls of the palace, carrying with it the promise of death. Queen Cirith pressed herself against the cold floor, trying to slow her breathing, trying to will the pain in her side to fade. Every breath was fire, every heartbeat a drum of warning. Yet through it all, she kept her eyes on the human kneeling nearby. "Elias, why?" She whispered again, voice trembling. "Why do you stay? You should leave before they kill you." Elias shook his head. "I told you," he said. "I've been running all my life. And running never solved anything. Not really, this time. I choose to stay." Cirith closed her eyes for a moment. Choice. Humans spoke of it like it was a weapon, a power beyond brute strength. For centuries, she had ruled by fear, by absolute authority. Choices were dangerous. Choices could break empires. And yet here was a human, a fragile, scarred, bleeding human, standing firm because of a choice. A choice to care. The queen opened her eyes and looked at him again. For the first time, she felt something strange, a connection that had nothing to do with loyalty or fear. "You don't understand," she said. "They betrayed me. My council, my generals, my own sister. They turned on me. I trusted them. I believed in peace, in order, in control. And they," her voice cracked and a cough racked her chest. Blood came up, hot and metallic. She bit back a scream. "They stabbed me." Elias listened without interruption. He did not flinch at her words. He did not judge. He did not recoil from the horror she carried. He just stayed, steady, as if the weight of her pain was his own to bear. "I can see it in your eyes," she said weakly. "You think I deserve hatred. My fleets burned your worlds. My soldiers killed your people. You have every reason to strike me down, and yet, you choose to stay." Elias looked down at the floor, then back at her. "Humans know betrayal too," he said softly. "We live with it every day. People we trust, people we call family, people we follow, they betray us. But we also do something you never do. We choose, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when it could kill us. We choose what we believe is right. And right now, I believe helping you is right." Cirith's chest tightened. She had ruled by strategy, by absolute control, by knowing exactly what others would do before they did it. And yet here, in front of her, a human so weak, so fragile understood something she had spent centuries refusing to learn: compassion, loyalty, the courage to act, without the guarantee of survival. The sound of approaching guards grew louder, echoing like thunder across the ruined halls. The queen's ears rang. Her vision blurred. She wanted to scream at Elias to leave, to survive, to save himself. She wanted to be alone, as she had always been. But when she looked at him, when she saw the determination etched on his bloodied face, something inside her shifted. "They will kill you," she said softly. "And I will be helpless to stop it." Elias met her gaze steadily. "And yet here I am," he said. "I've made my choice. You are not alone. Not today." Cirith's mind raced. She had been betrayed by those closest to her. She had been stabbed in the back by her own sister. Her council, her generals, the people she trusted to carry the empire forward, they had all abandoned her when she needed them most. And now she was lying on her throne floor, wounded, bleeding, and unsure if she could even rise again. But this human, he stayed, despite the danger, despite the pain he must be feeling from his own injuries, despite knowing that helping her could mean his death. He had chosen. Cirith swallowed hard, tasting the metallic tang of her own blood. She realized with a shock that she had never truly understood choice. Her empire had been ruled by fear. Her people had obeyed her out of loyalty, terror, or ambition. But none of them had ever acted purely from conviction, from a sense of right and wrong, from the courage to face impossible odds simply because it was the right thing to do. You are strange," she whispered, barely audible over the approaching footsteps. "Humans, you fight not for power, not for revenge, but for care." Elias's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "Some of us do," he said. "And I think the universe is better when we do." Cirith turned her head toward the sound of the guards. They were close now. Too close. Her body screamed at her to fight, to flee, to hide. But her heart long hardened, long unyielding beat in a strange new rhythm. Fear was still there. Pain was still there. Death might still be coming. But for the first time in centuries, Cirith did not feel alone, and that was terrifying, because the universe had taught her to trust nothing, fear everything, and rule through strength. Yet this human, kneeling before her, had shown her something she had never known, that even in betrayal, even in death, even in the cold silence of a broken empire, someone could choose to care, and sometimes that choice could change everything. The queen's claws flexed weakly against the metal floor. She drew a shallow breath and whispered, almost to herself, "Perhaps. Not all enemies are the same." Elias nodded once, as if understanding the thought she did not finish aloud. Outside, the first of the returning guards' voices grew sharp and commanding. The moment for waiting had ended. The moment for action had begun, and together, queen and human, they would face it. The distant footsteps had become a storm of sound, echoing through the shattered halls of the palace. Heavy armor clanged on the metal floor. Weapons were drawn. The returning Varelian guards were relentless, moving with the precision of trained killers, ready to finish the queen and any human foolish enough to stand in their way. Cirith's body ached with pain. Every movement was fire along the wound in her side. She pressed herself against the cold floor, the sharp edges biting into her armor. Her breathing was shallow. Her heart raced. Yet through the chaos, she did not look away from the human kneeling near her. "Elias, human," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "You must leave. They will kill you." Elias did not move. Not an inch. His dark eyes, tired but resolute, met hers. "I can't," he said softly. "I made my choice. I'm not leaving you." Cirith's chest tightened. The words should have filled her with fear. They should have made her want to push him away, to send him fleeing, to save him before it was too late. But instead, they did something she did not expect. Her chest ached, not just from pain, but from something else, gratitude, awe, something she had never felt in centuries of rule. The first group of guards burst into the hall. Their weapons glinted in the flickering light. "By order of the Hive Council," one shouted, voice like steel, "the false queen is to be executed." Elias rose slowly, deliberately, and positioned himself between Cirith and the guards. His armor was battered. His weapon was useless. He was small, fragile, human. But his stance was firm, unyielding, defiant. "She's wounded," he said evenly, voice carrying across the hall. "Stand down." The guards laughed, their voices cruel and sharp. "She is no longer queen," one of them said. "Move, human. Step aside or die like her." Elias did not step aside. He did not flinch. His hand hovered near the small weapon at his side, ready, but he did not raise it. "I said stand down," he repeated. "She is under my protection." Cirith's eyes widened. She had ruled over billions of Varelians, crushed armies, silenced rebellions. And yet she had never seen this. A human weak, injured, mortal standing firm against trained soldiers of her empire. The impossible was happening before her eyes. The guards advanced. Blasters hummed, ready to fire. Elias's shoulders tensed. He did not speak, he did not panic. He simply stood in front of the queen, his expression calm, determined, unwavering. Cirith felt something stir inside her. A spark, fragile and dangerous. Pride? No. Gratitude? Perhaps something deeper. She had spent centuries ruling through fear, knowing power, commanding obedience. And now, here was someone showing her a different kind of strength. Strength that came not from armies, not from blades, not from fear, but from refusal. Refusal to abandon, refusal to harm, refusal to let her die alone. The first blaster fired. The shot tore through the hall, hitting a pillar with a thunderous crash. Shards of metal sprayed outward. Elias reacted instantly, moving with speed she could hardly comprehend. He dove to the side, dragging her with him behind the shattered throne. Pain screamed through her side, and she nearly blacked out. "Stay with me," he shouted over the chaos, eyes scanning the advancing guards. "You're not dying today." She looked at him, barely able to speak. "Human, you mustn't." Her voice faltered. "You mustn't touch me. You will die." "I know," he said calmly. "But I'm not leaving you." Another volley of blaster fire lit up the room. Sparks rained down. Smoke filled her lungs. Cirith wanted to scream, to tell him to run, to save himself. But she could not. She could not look away. Elias fought like no human or alien she had ever seen. He was not the strongest. He was not the fastest. But he refused to give in. Every move was calculated, every risk taken with a single purpose: keep her alive. Cirith felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Not from pain, but from awe. For the first time, she realized something her empire had never taught her. Strength was not only in power. Loyalty was not only in fear. Courage could come from the smallest, most fragile creature. And sometimes, courage could be more terrifying than the strongest army. The guards paused, uncertain. They had expected her to die. They had expected the human to flee. But he did neither. He stood firm. He refused. Cirith clenched her fists, her pain momentarily forgotten. In that frozen moment, she saw something she had never thought possible. Humanity, not the savage. Destructive humans she had fought, but the humans who could choose to care. Even in the face of impossible odds, and that choice might just save her. The hall shook with the sound of blaster fire. Sparks flew across the cracked metal floor. Smoke thickened, choking the air. The returning Varelian guards moved with relentless precision, their weapons aimed at the queen and the human who had dared to protect her. Yet Elias did not flinch. He did not falter. He did not move away from her. Cirith could barely keep her eyes open. His hands were steady, even though blood streaked across his armor, and his breathing was harsh but controlled. "Stay close to me," he shouted over the noise. I won't let them touch you." She tried to push him away. "Human, you mustn't. You will die." His eyes met hers, sharp and unwavering. "I know," he said, voice firm. "But I choose to stay." The words struck her harder than any blade could. Choice. Humanity had a strange way of showing power, and she was learning it now. Elias was not the strongest soldier she had ever seen. He was not the fastest. He did not carry the largest weapon. But he carried something more dangerous than any fleet or army: determination. Refusal to give in. Courage born of care, not fear. Another volley of fire lit up the hall. Shrapnel flew past her, embedding itself in walls and floors. Elias moved like a shadow, dragging her behind cover, returning fire where he could. One guard lunged too close, swinging a vibroblade, and Elias reacted in a flash, parrying with a discarded pipe and knocking the guard down. She had never seen such speed from a human. He moved not with strength, but with precision, with will. Pain and fear were consuming her, but she could not tear her eyes from him. Each moment, each heartbeat, she realized something incredible. Humans were not the weak creatures her empire had feared. They could face death with no guarantee of survival. They could choose, again and again, even in hopeless moments. And they could act for someone else, even someone they had once been taught to hate. Elias glanced down at her, his dark eyes softening despite the chaos. "You're going to be okay," he said. "Just hold on. Breathe. Trust me." Sirith wanted to argue, wanted to shout that he must leave, that he should survive, that she could not ask him to risk himself for her. But words failed her. All she could do was follow him, letting his hands guide her over jagged metal and broken pillars. A heavy explosion rocked the far wall, sending a shower of sparks and debris into the air. Elias pushed her down, shielding her body with his own. Pain seared through his arm, but he did not cry out. He only gritted his teeth and kept moving. "You're incredible," Sirith whispered, breathless. Her words were more than admiration. They were awe. She had commanded millions of Varelians, crushed rebellion after rebellion. And yet nothing she had seen compared to the defiance of one human standing between her and death. Elias smiled faintly, even as blood streaked his cheek. "I do what I must," he said. "And right now, that means keeping you alive." They moved through the hall like ghosts, weaving between guards, dodging fire, collapsing pillars, and exploding walls. Each time she stumbled, he caught her. Each time she faltered, he held her. And with every moment, Sirith felt something she had not felt in centuries: trust. A trust not built on fear, not built on obedience, but built on choice. A pause came. A brief, dangerous silence. The guards hesitated, uncertain of what to do against a human who refused to yield. In that moment, Sirith saw the truth clearly. Elias's strength was not in weapons. It was not in armor. It was in his refusal to leave, in his refusal to give up, in his refusal to let her die alone. Pain screamed through her body, but hope stirred in her heart. Perhaps she could survive this. Perhaps they could survive this. Perhaps. Even in betrayal, even in blood, even in the ruins of her empire, someone could choose to stand with her. Elias looked down at her again, his hand steady on her shoulder, despite the blood and smoke. "Almost there," he whispered. "Just a little further. You're not dying today. Not while I'm here." Sirith swallowed back a groan of pain. She wanted to refuse, to push him away, to protect him from the inevitable. But she could not. Not when he had already chosen. And in that moment, lying in the wreckage of her throne room, Queen Sirith understood something she had never known. Courage, true courage, was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to act despite it. And Elias was the bravest being she had ever met. The distant sounds of battle faded as Cirith and Elias finally stumbled into a small, abandoned corridor of the palace. Smoke clung to the walls, and the metallic taste of blood lingered in the air. The chaos of the throne room seemed far away, though the echoes of explosions and shouts still vibrated in their ears. Cirith collapsed against a wall, her body shaking from exhaustion and pain. Every breath scorched her lungs. Every heartbeat reminded her that she was still alive barely. Elias knelt beside her, his own wounds bleeding but manageable. He searched through his battered pack and pulled out a small human medkit, placing it carefully beside her. "This will stabilize you," he said softly. "It won't heal everything, but it'll give us a chance to get out." Cirith's pride rose, even through the haze of pain. "I do not need your help," she whispered, her voice low but trembling. "You should leave, my people. They will kill you for being here." Elias shook his head. "I'm staying," he said simply. "I told you before. I made my choice." She looked at him then, really looked at him, for the first time without fear or suspicion clouding her vision. His face was smeared with ash, his armor torn, but his dark eyes burned with something she had not seen in centuries of ruling: determination and care. His humanity was raw, stubborn, defiant, and it terrified her. Cirith allowed herself to breathe, slow and careful. Elias gently helped her sit up, checking her wounds as he worked. His hands were warm, steady, and unafraid of the silver-blue blood staining her side. She shivered, not from cold, but from the strange feeling of trust, something she had never let herself experience. She had always been alone. She had always ruled through fear, authority, and control. And yet here was a human, kneeling beside her in the ruins of her empire, refusing to leave, refusing to give up, refusing to let her die alone. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why do you care?" Elias paused for a moment. "Because someone once cared for me," he said. "They risked everything to save me when I was alone. And I remember what that felt like. That feeling. It changes you. It makes you see that even when the world is broken, you can make a choice. And right now I choose you." Her chest tightened at the words. Emotions she had long buried, gratitude, awe, something dangerous that felt like hope flooded her. She had never been chosen like this before. Not by her people, not by her council, not by anyone. And yet this human had chosen her, even when every rational instinct screamed against it. The corridor was narrow and dark, but it provided enough cover for them to move. Elias helped her stand, supporting her weight. Every step was agony, yet Cirith found herself leaning on him willingly. She had never relied on anyone before, never admitted weakness, never let anyone see her so vulnerable. And now, in the heart of her destroyed palace, she felt something she had not felt in centuries: trust. "Almost there," Elias said, scanning the corridor. "There's a small shuttle dock on the east wing. It's old, but it'll get us out of here." Cirith nodded weakly, biting back a cough of blood. "If I survive this, you will have saved more than a queen. You will have saved the idea of the empire itself." Elias shook his head. "No," he said. "I saved you. That's enough for me." As they moved through the corridors, Cirith realized something profound. She had spent centuries believing that power was the only thing that mattered. Strength, fear, and strategy had been her allies, and betrayal had been her constant enemy. And yet now she saw another truth, one she had never admitted: compassion, choice, and courage were far stronger than any weapon, far more dangerous than any army. Finally, they reached the shuttle dock. The small ship was damaged but functional. Elias helped Cirith inside and guided her to a seat. He worked quickly, checking systems, keeping her safe from the encroaching enemy forces. As the shuttle doors closed, Cirith felt the weight of her empire, her mistakes, her betrayal, and her own mortality pressing on her. And yet, she felt hope. Elias looked at her, his face smeared with blood and soot, but his eyes gentle. "You're going to be okay," he said. "We'll get out of here. You'll survive. You'll rebuild." Sirith took a shuddering breath, and finally allowed herself to relax. The pain was still there, but the fear, the loneliness, the despair, all of it was tempered by the presence of this human. He had chosen her. He had risked everything for her. And in doing so, he had changed something deep inside her, her understanding of strength, her understanding of loyalty, her understanding of what it meant to survive. Truly survive, not just as a queen, but as a being capable of feeling. The engines of the shuttle roared to life. The ship lifted off the ruined palace, carrying them away from death, betrayal, and destruction. Sirith looked down at the burning city below, then back at Elias. You touched me," she whispered softly, almost afraid of what that meant. Elias smiled faintly. "And I would do it again," he said. Sirith realized then, she was no longer the same queen who had ruled through fear. She was something more dangerous now. A queen reborn not through armies, not through betrayal, not through power, but through trust, courage, and the quiet, defiant choice of a human who refused to leave her behind. And in that moment, she understood. Sometimes survival meant more than life. Sometimes it meant letting someone in, and perhaps that was the beginning of a new empire. The shuttle floated silently through the stars, carrying two survivors who had once stood on opposite sides of an impossible war. The hull creaked as it adjusted its course, leaving the burning remnants of the Varelian palace behind. Queen Sirith sat in a corner, her silver-blue blood still staining her armor, breathing shallow and uneven. Elias knelt beside her, checking her wounds again, though the med kit had done what it could. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. For centuries, Sirith had ruled through fear. She had commanded fleets, crushed rebellion after rebellion, and bent entire civilizations to her will. She had believed that power was the only truth in the galaxy. Strength, strategy, obedience. Betrayal had always been the other side of that coin, and she had felt it sharply in her bones, and yet now floating in the quiet of space beside a human, she understood something entirely different. Strength could come from compassion. Power could come from choice. Courage could exist even in the smallest, weakest beings. Elias looked at her, face smudged with soot and blood, but eyes alive with determination. "You're going to be okay," he said softly. "We'll find safety. We'll make it through this. You'll survive." She studied him, this fragile, stubborn creature who had risked everything to keep her alive. Her people had taught her that humans were weak, chaotic, too emotional to last among the stars. And yet, here he was, the one human who had taught her more about strength than all her fleets, all her generals, all her empire ever could. "You," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You stayed for me, why?" Elias shook his head. "Because someone once stayed for me. And I remember what that felt like. You showed me that even when everything is broken, someone can choose to care. That choice, it changes everything." She thought about betrayal, about the council that had turned on her, about her sister's blade. Pain still lingered in her side, but it was nothing compared to the realization forming in her mind. She had spent centuries believing she was alone in the universe. And yet, here was a being who had chosen her, not because of her rank or her power, but because of who she was in that moment. Wounded, Vulnerable, human enough to be deserving of care. Her chest tightened. Trust was alien to her. Hope had always been dangerous. Love had been impossible. And yet, in the quiet of the shuttle, she felt all of them flicker alive inside her. "You are dangerous," she said softly, almost a smile touching her lips. "Not with weapons. Not with armies, but with your choice." Elias smiled faintly. "That's humanity," he said. "We fight with courage, with stubbornness, with care. We make choices even when the odds are impossible. And sometimes, that's enough to change the galaxy." Cirith considered his words. She had ruled empires, commanded entire worlds, and yet she had never seen the universe in this way. Humans were unpredictable, yes. Fragile, yes. Loud, chaotic, emotional. Yes. And yet, in that chaos, in that fragility, in that emotion, there was something terrifyingly powerful. Something no fleet or empire could ever match: the courage to care, even when it could destroy you. Her fingers brushed lightly against his hand, unthinking at first. It was a small gesture, simple, human. He did not recoil. He did not flinch. He let her, steady and calm, as if this small touch mattered more than any weapon in the galaxy. "You touched me," she whispered, remembering the first time he had defied her warnings. "Even when I told you not to. Even when it was dangerous." "I know," he said softly. "And I would do it again." The engines hummed quietly. Stars streaked past the viewport as the shuttle glided into open space. Cirith leaned back, her body still aching, her mind still processing, but her heart. Her heart felt alive in a way it had not for centuries. The galaxy had taught her that power alone could not save empires. Betrayal had taught her that trust was fragile. But humanity had taught her the most dangerous lesson of all: that survival was more than strength, that courage was more than armies, that hope could exist even in the darkest hour. And as the shuttle moved further from the ruins of the palace, Cirith made a choice of her own. She would live not just to survive, but to learn, to grow, to rule differently. To rule with care, with courage, with understanding. Elias looked at her, and for the first time, she met his gaze not as a queen to a soldier, not as an alien to a human, but as one being to another. Equal in the simple, unbreakable truth they now shared. They had chosen each other. The stars stretched endlessly around them, cold and vast. And yet, in that infinite darkness, something new was born. A queen reborn, a human who defied expectation. And the quiet, unstoppable force of choice. The galaxy would never be the same, because when betrayed and wounded, the alien queen whispered, "You mustn't touch me." Human, and the human answered not with words, not with weapons, but with courage, care, and the simple act of choosing to stand beside her. And that choice was humanity at its finest. HFY